Hey guys, welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial we will be building this word scramble game, and we will get a word here. It's scrambled and hint and a timer, and after the timer is finished we will get our result here. So let's try to solve this event in which people come together. Let's write something and check word. Oops, this is not a correct word. And if we try again, it's not a correct word either. And as you can see, when the pop-up is here, the timer is frozen. So after the timer is finished, here is the correct word. So meeting is our correct word, and if we click on refresh word, we will get new words and then reset the timer. So let's start building this project. First of all, let's create our 3 files. And let's create our boilerplate, and I'll give it a title here, Word Scramble, and let's link the CSS file and the JavaScript file as well. Okay, now let's open this with our live server extension. Okay, here it is. It's a blank page as we don't have anything here. So let's write our HTML. First of all, let's create a title, Word Scramble. Let's create a div with a content, and let's put everything inside a container div. So make sure you cut this and paste it here. Okay, perfect. Now inside this content, let's create a P and give it a class of word. This is where the main word will show, a scrambled word will show. And after that, let's create a div with a class of details. Inside this, let's create a P tag with a class of hint and hint dash. Let's create a span inside here. Okay, and now let's create another P with a class of time, and time left colon span B bold tag at 30 seconds. Okay, now after this details div, let's create an input with a type of text, spell check to false, and placeholder to enter a valid word. Now after that, let's create another div here with a class of buttons. Let's create a button with a class of refresh dash word and refresh dash word. Now let's duplicate this and let's rename these to check word and check word here as well. Okay, I think the main structure is done. Now let's check this out. Okay, here it is. It looks very ugly. We will style this now. Let's paste this here. Okay, let's grab Google Fonts, go to fonts.google.com and search for Poppins. Okay, let's click on the get font button. Let's remove this one and get embed code. Click on import and copy this lines and go to style.css and paste it. After that, let's select everything and give it a margin 0, padding 0, box sizing to border dash box, and the font family to Poppins sans serif. Okay, let's check this out. Okay, perfect. Now let's select the body, give it a background color of hashtag E5 E5 E5, a gray color. You can choose any color you want. Let's give it a display to flex and align items to center, justify content center, and minimum height to 100 ph. This will center everything inside the page. And let's also give it a padding of 10 pixels left and right. Alright, now let's select this container and give it a background and some other styling. Width 444 pixels, border radius to, let's give it 16 pixels, background color to white, and box shadow 0, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, RGBA 000 black, and the opacity 0.08, just a subtle shadow here. And also let's give it some padding, top and bottom 1 rem and 0 left and right. Perfect. Okay, now let's select the container H2, give it a font size to, let's say, 25 pixels, font weight to 700, text transform uppercase, text align to center, and also give it some padding to 16 pixels top and bottom and 25 pixels left and right. Give it a border radius as well, 1 pixel solid, hashtag CCC. Okay, perfect. Oh, sorry, not border here, it should be border bottom. Okay, now it's looking perfect. Okay, now let's select the container content, give it some margin to 25 pixels top, 20 pixels bottom, and 30 pixels, so like this. Now let's select the word content word and give it a user select to none, font size to 33 pixels, font weight to 500, text align to center, letter spacing 24 pixels, so that we can get plenty of space between the scrambled words. It will be easier for the player to figure it out. And give it a margin right of -24 pixels, and let's give it a word dash break to break all, and text transform uppercase, so it will not show for now as we don't have anything inside. Okay, now after this let's select the details, content details, let's give it some margin 25 pixels, 20 pixels. Okay, this is a hint, this is time left. And after this let's select the content, sorry, not the content, the details P paragraph, and give it a font size 18 pixels and margin dash bottom to, let's say, 10 pixels. So the hint will show here. Now let's style the input, content input width to 100%, give it a height of 60 pixels, give it outline none, padding to 16 pixels, and font size to 18 pixels. Alright, now let's give it a border radius to 16 pixels, or a bit less, let's say 12 pixels. Perfect. Now let's, after this, give it a border 1 pixel solid, hashtag BF. Just a subtle border, and when it's in focus, let's select the content, input, focus. Let's give it a box shadow 0, 2 pixels, 4 pixels, RGBA 000 black, and the opacity is going to be 0.08. Okay, when it's selected, this is shadow will appear, and when it's also in focus, I want to select the placeholder and give it a color of AAA, so it grays out a bit, as you can see here. Perfect. Now let's style this buttons here, content dash buttons, give it a display flex, margin top of 20 pixels, and justify content space between. Okay, now let's style them a bit. Buttons dot, no dot here, buttons button, give it a border of none, outline none as well, and give it a color of white, cursor pointer padding 15 pixels top and bottom, and 0 on the left and right. Give it a border radius to 12 pixels, same as the input. Okay, now let's give it some width here to calc 100% divided by 2 minus 8 pixels, and give it a transition all 0.3 seconds ease. Now let's select the buttons, button dot, let's give it an active status first, and transform scale 0.97. So if I click, it goes a little small. Perfect. Now let's select the first button, the refresh button, which has a class of refresh dash word. Let's give it a background to hashtag 6C757D, this dark gray, and let's copy this and paste it here. Let's, what did we call it, check word. Let's give it a green background to hashtag 38B000. Okay, nice. Now I see the font size is a bit small here. Let's add a font size to 17 pixels maybe. Yeah, perfect. Okay, now let's create a hover state for these two buttons. First, let's select this refresh word and paste it here, hover, and let's change the background, not background color, the background to hashtag 5F666D. So if I hover, it grows even darker. And also let's select this one, pasted, and on hover let's change this to 000800. Maybe not. Let's say if I copy, okay 008000. Perfect. So our desktop design is looking good. Let's see if I go below this. Let's style this media screen and max dash width to 470 pixels. I want the h2 font size 22 pixels and padding to 13 pixels and 20 pixels. And let's select the content dash dot word font size to 30 pixels, letter spacing 20 pixels, and margin dash right to minus 20 pixels. Alright, now let's select the container, content, margin 20 pixels, 20 pixels, 30 pixels, and after that let's select the details P. Let's change the font size to 16 or 15 or 16 pixels. Margin bottom 8 pixels. After that let's select the content input, give it a height of 55 pixels so that it's a bit less. Alright, and also let's change the font size to 17 pixels. After that let's select the buttons button. Let's change the padding a bit, 14 pixels and 0, and font size to 16 pixels. Give it a width of calc 100% divided by 2 minus 7 pixels. Alright, perfect. Now let's make this work with JavaScript, of course. Go to script.js. Now I have a bunch of words and the hint from ChatGPT. I got this list. You can use an API as well, and for this simple project I'm gonna keep it like simple and use it manually. So you can see we have the word and the hint. I have like 200 words here maybe, or 180, I don't know, you can get more, but let's work on this. After defining the words, let's select the elements first. The word text document.query selector dot word. Let's give it a comma here. Hint text document.query selector hint. Let's call this time text document.query selector time B. Input field document.query selector input. Refresh button document.query selector refresh dash btn. sorry, I did call it word, and the check button to document.query selector check word. Alright, we're done here. Let's end the semicolon here. Now after this, when we first refresh the page, we will see the word here, scrambled word, and the hint and the timer should run automatically on each reload. So for doing that, let's first create a function called const init game. Let's create an arrow function, and let's start the timer first by calling the init timer function, which we create now. We will create this init timer function a bit later. Let's finish this function. Let random object is equals to words math.floor math.random times words.length. So this will just create a random object from this words object array of objects. After this, let's create a word array random object dot word dot split. So this split method will take that random object or word you call, it will split into like this. You got it right? So after splitting it, we want to run a for loop. Let I is equals to word array dot length -1, I is greater than 0, and we're going to decrement it. Inside this for loop, let's create another variable called j, and we will call the math floor function again, method again, math.random times I plus 1 and word array dot of I comma word array of j is equals to word array of j comma word array of I, and also insert a bracket here. So after this for loop, word text, we will append the list. So inner text is equals to word array dot join. Remember, we splitted the words, now we are going to join it together. And after this, let's select the hint text dot inner text is equals to random object dot hint. We will set the hint text to these hints here. After that, let's create two variables in the global scope. Let's call this correct word and the timer, and in here let's set the correct word is equals to random object dot word dot to lower case. Let's set the input field dot value to an empty string, and input field dot set attribute to max length and correct word dot length. So we're setting an attribute as well into the input field with max length of the correct word dot length. And I think we need to create this init timer function as well. So above this, let's create the const init timer is equals to max time this will take this max time variable. Let's put it in parentheses, and after that let's call the clear interval method and run the timer, and timer is equals to set interval. We will set this to 1 second, and inside this function, if the max time is greater than 0, we will decrement the max time by 1 and return time text dot inner text is equals to the max time, and else we're just going to set an alert and time off. Correct word dot to upper case was the correct word. So basically what this will do is, if the time is over, this alert will show with the correct word, and it will decrement 1 by 1 second till reach 30 seconds, because we are calling 30 here. And after this, let's run the init game function, and also when the page loads, we will also run the init game function. Let's test this out. Okay, it's running, but the problem is the word is not showing here. Let's see. Cannot access J before initialization on 236. Let's see. Okay, we need to put a semicolon here, I think. Let's save this out. Yes, now the word will show and the timer will run, and each time this init game function runs on each page reload. Okay, now let's work on these buttons. When we click on this refresh word, this init game function will run, and we are going to check the correct word. Okay, let's see if we get any alert. Okay, it's working, and undefined was the correct word. Undefined, this should show. Okay, we need to put a parenthesis here, not like this, and this should be uppercase to uppercase. Okay, let's check this out. Okay, now it's working perfectly. Meeting was the correct word. Let's say, yeah, I think so. Okay, now let's work on these buttons. Let's select the refresh button dot add event listener. Click. We're going to call the init game function. That's easy. Let's refresh. Watch the timer. Yeah, it's reset backs. And the next one is the check button that add event listener. Click, and we're going to create this check word function. Let's go here, const check word. Let's create an arrow function, and let's create a variable first. Let user word is equals to input field dot value dot to lower case. If we console log this, user word, let's type a gibberish here and check. We get this word here, and let's, if the user word is not true, we're going to return an alert. Please enter the word to check. So if we don't have anything here and we press the check, this alert will show. And another if the user word is not double equals to correct word, then we're going to return alert. Oops, user word is not the correct word, and we're going to call the init game again. Let's save this out. Let's put some semicolons here. Alright, let's see what word we get. So I think it's, what is it, Peter? Let's check. Oops, Peter is not the correct word. Let's refresh it, and this one is, I think, shadow. Let's check. Okay, we don't get any alert that we won. So if these two are not true, then we are going to give alert, meaning we won. So first thing is the user don't put any word, and the second condition is if the user was is not equals to the correct word, then if these two are not met, it means that we have the correct word. So we can go and call this congrats. Correct word dot to lowercase is the correct word. Okay, let's see. Refresh. I think this is jungle. Let's check. Congrats, jungle is the correct word. Perfect. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and make sure to subscribe and like for another project tutorial like this. Thank you. Have a nice day.